Mugwumps, they're everywhere. They're speaking out. Board meetings, City Hall, Town Square, Courthouse, State House, even the White House. They must be stopped. They are disruptors.
Welcome again, everyone, to Mugwump Media. Welcome to the little studio in the woods that we lovingly call Disruptor Central. It's a nice place. The discussion gets a little animated and rowdy sometimes, but that's okay. Sometimes you need to uproot some weeds to clean out the garden, so to speak. An honest civil conversation, that's how you get there. My name is Juanita Bright, and to my right is my husband and my fellow disruptor, Kevin. Say hello, Kevin.
Hello, Juanita.
Now, one of the things that Kevin and I and the whole Mugwump team recognized early on in the conception of this podcast is that Missouri, a red conservative state, is slowly drifting leftward, despite the fact that we have a supermajority of Republicans in both the House and the Senate. And the problem is that Missouri citizens, the majority of whom are really very conservative and common sense, they're just not generally connected and aware of what's going on in our state. We've woke up nationally, but not locally. We're kind of asleep. I think it's just been a little too good for too long. But also, there isn't a good central hub to get good information to the citizens. Over the last several years, with the disgrace, the absolute disgrace of the lying mainstream news media, people have cut the cord. They've retreated from cable and dish and more turned to streaming platforms. And who do they love to listen to? Podcasts. The voices of common people, the real public, their neighbors, in the same predicament as they are, the new town square. And that's how the idea of Mugwump Media came about. We're going to be striving, folks, to bring that town square to you all. And one of the things that we're going to strive to do is to bring interviews of patriot House and Senate members to both inform and inspire you. Today, we have a very special interview with someone that Kevin and I greatly respect. And we are so happy that you accepted our invitation to come share with us and with our listeners. Folks, our guest today is Senator Mike Moon, who represents the 29th District in the Missouri Senate. Welcome, Mike. We're so happy to have you.
Well, thanks, Juanita. And Kevin, I'm glad to be here with you.
It's good to have you here, Mike.
Now, Mike represents Berry, Christian, Lawrence, and McDonald County. He was first elected to the Senate in 2020. You've been in for a few years.
Yep.
And he was just reelected. Congratulations in 2024.
Thank you.
But prior to that, Mike served the 157th District in the Missouri House of Representatives from 2013 to 2020. And I love this. He was named the most constitutionally voting legislator by the Locke and Smith Foundation from 2017 to 2023. You're a real patriot. Now, personally, Mike is a Republican from Ash Grove. And in his early life, after graduating from high school in Chesapeake, Virginia, he attended Baptist Bible College in Springfield, Missouri. I bet that's how you ended up in this area.
It is. In fact, after high school, I had no intent to go to college. I was working for the Norfolk Naval Shipyards. I followed in my dad's footsteps.
Yes.
And after about a year there, I started calculating I would have to work there for 45 years to retire. And
Wow.
I thought, I don't know if I can do that.
Yep.
My sister was one of 25 kids from my home church in Virginia to come out to Baptist Bible College in Springfield, and she had been encouraging me to do that for just about the whole time that she was here. And finally, I succumbed to her encouragement and decided to follow her out here and just never left.
Yeah, it's a nice place. You fit well.
Thank you.
I think you fit well. We're very glad you're here. And you met your pretty wife of over 40 years now.
Yeah.
Miss Denise, she's here.
That's right.
Yeah, she's. Whenever I said, Denise, do you want to sit over here by a microphone? She quickly said no, so that's okay. But she is here. Very nice lady.
We met at the end of our first year and dated for a couple, and have been married now for 45 this summer.
That is wonderful, wonderful. And like I told Denise, man, people that are married a long time, Kevin and I have been married a long time too. We're kind of dinosaurs, but you know what? We need to get back to that in our society.
Yes.
The family unit that's the backbone of America. Mike received his bachelor's degree in secondary education from Southwest Missouri State University in 1985. And he and Denise have 5 children, nice family.
You bet.
Amanda, Brian, Aaron, David, and Jason, and you have grandkids.
Yes.
Now, in your bio, it said that you are the proud grandparents of 4 granddaughters and 3 grandsons. Is that all, or do you have others?
That's all for now.
That's all for now. There you
all
go.
that we know of.
You can always hope for more.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
Mike enjoyed a 28-year career in marketing at Mercy Hospital and currently works as a cattle rancher. And I told him, and he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, because I said, well, you look like a rancher. And he said, kind of threw his hands out like, what, am I fat?
It was your hand gesture. You
It's a
said
hand
like,
gesture.
oh, maybe you were talking about the sidearms. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
6 guns. Yeah.
I could see you with a pair of sidearms. I could.
Yep.
No, he's kind of wiry and slender. He looks like a rancher to me. So you, let's see, 28-year marketing, cattle rancher, 2 farms, Lawrence and Christian County. You're also, and I love this, and I can tell everything about him. When Mike first started coming in and visiting with us, he started talking about the Lord's will. He started talking
Yes.
about things of God.
Yes.
And all these patriot politicians, and he's not even a politician. He is a representative of the people, but all the ones that we know that are representing, that are in government, that are actually good, are the ones that put God first. And I
Yes.
love that. Yeah. He's an active member of High Street Baptist Church, where he serves as a deacon, Sunday school teacher, and on mission committees. So, excellent. Good
A
job.
spokesman for the kingdom.
Spokesman for the
Well,
kingdom.
really, that's our mission.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, Mike, one of the things that Kevin and I really like and admire about you is the fact that even though you've been involved in politics for, you said 12 years, just beginning your 13th year, from what we know of you, and what I told you before, your reputation precedes you. It does. I don't know anybody who doesn't respect Mike Moon. You are a stalwart conservative, obviously, through and through, and you seem to have kept your eye on the ball. Laser focus all of these years. And as you know, that's not really common in politics, especially if you're there very long. So what has kept you grounded? What's your North Star?
Well, before I answer that last question, let me tell you what I see that happens in a lot of cases. Some people say we all go up for the right reasons, and that could be true or not. But oftentimes we are indoctrinated.
Yes.
And I was
Yes.
fortunate because when I started, I was elected in a special election in 2013. Of course, normally the session begins in January. You're sworn in as a group, and then you before that you have a tour with the freshmen. You get on a bus and you go across the state for a couple of weeks, looking at all the neat things that we're doing, and just being told that we need to make sure these things are perpetuated. So I missed that. I was seated on April 22nd of 2013, so I didn't hear all the indoctrination. And 15 minutes after I took my seat, we were actually voting on bills. And fortunately, the week before, I had prepared a little bit. I could see the calendar, so I read the bills and found out a little bit, at least I hoped I'd understood. And so the second week was different. These were bills I hadn't read about because I was so focused on that first week. I guess I forgot to look at the next week and what was on the calendar. And there was one bill that had 99 pages. There was an amendment. Excuse me. Just an amendment was 99 pages long. Well, I'd become accustomed to the procedure. We had computers on our desks. I could pull up the bill or the amendment and start to read it. I didn't know, though, they would only give me 30 seconds to read that bill and understand it. And so they called for the final vote, and I voted no. Well, that started a process of the king. I called him the king, didn't I? the
You
speaker,
did speak king,
the
yes.
speaker sending out his minions to my desk to say, Mike, you just need to vote along with the party. And they figured that as long as I could defend my position, they stopped coming around. And said, besides, I told them, the people of Lawrence County, which I was representing at that time,
Yes.
didn't elect me just to go along to get along.
No.
And so I think I was fortunate. Had I been in the beginnings and gotten the indoctrination and the orientations that they had, you might not be talking to me on the same level today. I probably would have been a different person. So I'm grateful. I think it was the Lord's
Intervention.
yes, that he allowed
Yes.
me to not come in with that initial group. And so I learned that the Constitution matters.
Yes.
And we were violating our oath, at least in my opinion.
Yes.
And so I started having conversations with people about it, and they said, we don't agree with you, and if we're going to get something done, we have to do it this way. So I think that my North Star, as you questioned me, is following the Constitution. That's number one. And then to do all we can to protect the God-given rights of the people in Missouri, and especially the innocent, those who
Yes.
aren't even born yet.
Yes.
And we have made some egregious errors, I believe. And
Yes.
as we have lived through Amendment 3 passage this past summer,
Yes.
now we have an opportunity and I think a responsibility to speak for those who likely could be killed as a result of it. I'm talking about the unborn children.
Yes.
And so those two things are my North Stars.
Yes.
With that being said, what you just shared, God, there's no doubt God ordained you to go at that time.
Yep.
You were the one called to be there, and it kind of reminds me of some I can't not refer to the Bible. The Apostle
Right.
Paul, when he came in from the outside, the apostles were all there and the church was being built and everything. When Paul came in from the outside, he was not treated very well. There was a lot of suspicion.
Yeah.
And it turned out he was the one that God ordained to go in and kind of help set the churches up. I
Yeah.
mean, he was the one that wrote the letters and
Right.
proclaimed God's way. Have you ever felt that? Is there times when you feel that this is, it's just, well, obviously you do, because you make a stand because you know what's right and you stick to that before anything else, it sounds like.
There have been times where I wonder why I'm there and that I don't want to be there. And there are times, like even now, it takes a while before things get up and running and before I really feel like we need to do something. I'd rather be at home, honestly.
Of course.
But I believe that I am called to be there. And there have been times where the Lord has affirmed that I should be there as well. And you brought something to mind there, Kevin, about how the Lord orchestrated this whole thing. Denise and I decided that we would run for office back in 2010. It was
Pause. I love that you said we ran for office.
I was going to
That's
comment on
important.
that too.
That is very important.
Leah and Mike, or Leah and Bert,
Yes.
said the very same thing.
Yes.
They were in prayer for months
Yeah.
before. Yeah, absolutely. It's a team effort.
Yeah. Well, I won't tell you the whole story because it takes a little bit of time, but we lost miserably the first time out. That was in the 2010 election. We had a lot of fun, though. And so anyway, we ran again in 2012. Had a lot of fun. Again, we lost miserably. But I have to predicate what happened to get me into the House. Since our loss was actually in August in the primary of 2012, we had a lot of time to regroup and think about what we were doing. And I had decided that maybe I should just be an activist, that trying to be a candidate and maybe an elected maybe just wasn't in the works for me. Well, there was something happened at work. I worked for a local hospital for about 28 years. And the last 6 months of it was really kind of interesting because I was in a marketing position and we would make proposals on some new ideas. And that last 6 months, the administrators would say, no, just keep on doing what you're doing. And I went back to the staff and told them, something's a little odd here. I don't know what's going on, but keep your eyes and ears open. And I don't know that it was 6 months to the day, but the administrators came to me and said, Mike, we appreciate your service to the hospital, but our focus has changed and you're not part of it anymore. And I thought, I knew something was going on. Well, we got our family together. We had a couple of our kids were out of the house already, but we brought them all back together, and we told them about what had happened that day. And my oldest daughter said, "Dad, what are you going to do now?" And I said, I don't know. But I said, it's kind of like you've heard the stories of people dying and their life flashes before them just all in a matter of seconds. I said, my life has kind of flashed before me here, where I remember when I was single, I would get in predicaments where I didn't know how I was going to get out of these things. And all of a sudden they'd be taken care of. Thought, man, good for me, right? Married your mom, some of the same things happening. After your kids were born, some of the same things. And I was thinking, what am I going to do to get out of this pickle? And I said, all these things were cared for, but I said, I wasn't giving credit to the one who actually orchestrated those pulling me out of the muck and mire. I said, it was the Lord doing that. And I said, do you remember when the children of Israel crossed the Jordan? After they crossed, God had parted the water. And after they crossed and were on the other side, God commanded them, each of the 12 tribes, to take a memorial stone and build a memorial. And they said, when all the future generations pass by, they'll say, what's that for? And you can tell them how God parted the waters. Yes. And I think there was probably more that was said there. I'm not going to try to tell all the stories there.
The 12 stones.
But I think that they would probably say, we serve an almighty God. He cares for us. He took us out of the wilderness, and he's cared for all of our needs. And so I told my kids, someday you're probably going to be in a pickle like I was, and you're not going to know where to turn. But I said, if you'll trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, the Bible says he's going to direct your path.
Yep.
So I told him, I think this is a lesson for me to learn specifically, because I wasn't giving credit where credit is due.
Yes.
But for you too, to know that I don't know what's going to happen, but the Lord's going to take care of us. And so not long after, someone had come to me from the county and said, hey, Mike, would you run for office? Because we have a vacancy here. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm resigned to be just an activist. Well, a couple weeks later, they came back again and said, you've run twice. Your name is recognized by a lot of people.
Yes.
And we'd like for you to run. And my oldest daughter said, maybe that's why you ran, Dad. And so we decided we'd go ahead and vie for that. And so we won, and now we're still here. And the remarkable thing to me is that the positions that I've taken haven't always been easy.
Yes.
I don't know that they've always been right either. But I've tried to draw a line in the sand to say, this is where I won't cross. The Constitution matters. I think we ought to pay attention to that.
Yes.
And then there are certain things I'm not going to vote for, even if it's against the party. Sometimes I've stood all alone.
Oh my gosh, he's a mugwump. Mike, you're a mugwump. You
Oh
didn't
my
even
goodness.
know it.
Well,
We've just uncovered a disruptor.
Yes.
and well, if you ask some people, they're going to say, yeah, Moon's a disruptor. You know what's really kind of tickles me? I haven't seen this yet, but my staff says the lobbyists now come around and say, hey, what does Mike think about this bill? Because they know you filibustered before, and you'll filibuster again if that's what it takes.
Yes.
And they want to know, are you going to stand against them, or are you going to stand for them, or are you just going to be silent? That's an honor, actually. I'm tickled to hear that, but it's not always easy.
No.
I can't imagine.
And not always fun either. But in any case, I'm not sure what the question was now, but I think
you're doing great.
Interrupted you.
We love it. We love it.
It's
it
more
tells
important.
who you are.
Yes.
You're telling people who you are.
Yes.
And that's important. The fact that you're going to choose what's right, and you're going to choose the will of the people and the good for the people over party politics. Like I said, you're mugwump.
As God's people, we have to come to realize we're not responsible for the results.
Yes.
We're responsible for what we do along the way. We have to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian Rollman, you know Brian Rollman.
Yes, I do.
He told me that one day. He said, Juanita, you're not responsible for the results. And I was like, oh, you're right. Because it's easy to get overwhelmed.
Yes.
I mean, I can't even imagine being in your position. Crazy. One of the things I was going to ask you too, everybody, we talked to Bert, of course, Bert Whaley, wonderful man.
Good guy.
And anybody that I talk to, I say, what the heck's going on? You know, we see every year we hear crazy things happening. Last year we were just for sure that initiative petition reform was going to happen, and then it didn't. And several years it has not passed. You know, and I've had many questions. What the heck? What's going on that these things don't get passed? And everybody says, you know what? You need to get Mike Moon talking about it because he can tell you some of the things that are not functioning right, that are not going well in the House and in the Senate.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on, that some of these crazy things? I mean, we obviously are going leftward, and we are being ruled now by initiative petition. You know that. I mean, Amendment 3 was horrible. The gambling bill, one of those passed.
Right.
Well, and the statement that we keep hearing that I'm not going to accept anymore, we can't accept it, is you mentioned it a while ago. Well, we just got to take what we can get.
Yeah.
Take what we can get, or well, maybe we can
It's
get a
not
change.
okay.
Let's go ahead and follow the process. You know, follow the procedure,
process.
and you know they're saying we're going to get it fixed this year. Really, it wasn't fixed last year or the year before.
And you'll hear something that almost drives me crazy. There is a truth to it, but people say it's all about relationships. Well, yeah, you need to build and foster good relationships, but you also need to stand against the tyrannical, despotic legislation that some of these relationships form and try to push down your throats. And I don't know that I can tell everything because I don't know everything there is to know, but what I've witnessed, especially in the House and even in the Senate, is we are governed by a set of rules. And these rules, if followed properly, can be very constructive and helpful. But we either set aside a rule either by a vote, which we can do, or we set aside by ignoring. And I can give you some examples of some of those things. But from the House experience, I realized probably during my second year, because I was trying to put together, I was just there one full month the first year, from April 22nd to the middle of May. And I'm glad of that. The next year, I got to see the process from the beginning, and I started wondering, why do we do this way? Why is this happening? And what I learned is, I used the word king. Yep, we have a king, and they can drive whatever they want to. If they believe something, or a lobbyist convinces them that something is right, then they can orchestrate either in the public eye or under the radar what happens. I remember my second year, so it'd be 2014, so it'd be my first full year there. I was elected in a special election, and we had 3 or 4 other seats that were open, some Senate seats, some House seats, and the Governor Nixon at the time, had delayed in calling special elections. In mine, he didn't. It was almost immediate. The Constitution says that the governor should call for special elections without delay. And so I thought, well, I wonder why he didn't delay in my instance, and in others he did. So as I started looking at it, there was one seat that had been open for over 8 months. And by the time it was filled, it was over a year and a half.
Oh, my.
And I thought, well, why is that? So I decided, after consulting with some people, that I would file articles of impeachment against the governor. As a freshman?
Well, of course you did.
That took some nerve.
Well, not really. I just told him, I said, the Constitution says this. The speaker at the time said, yeah, you're right. I said, well, let's do it. Let's hear these bills. And he said, no, because it'll stop the whole legislative process. And I said, yeah, isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Yes.
Well, they wouldn't do it. Anyway, there's a long story that happened there. It's kind of funny the way it turned out. But I realized that we have rules. We even have a constitution that doesn't matter. It's just black and white. But it's not something that we are bound to follow. And because of that, the people suffer.
Yes.
And so the rules in the House, if followed, they have all sorts of different things about how you speak and how long you can speak. And, there's hundreds of them, or at least 100 rules. And so the leaders, specifically the Speaker of the House and the Majority Floor Leader, use those to their advantage because they will try to circumvent different things so that knowingly or unknowingly to the members of the House to make it to their advantage. And there's one specific thing that really drives me crazy. There's some good bills that are filed, and there's some also terrible bills that are filed. But the Constitution requires that all the bills be referred to a committee, but it doesn't say when. And so the Majority Floor Leader and the Speaker determine when those bills will be referred. And if you look at the calendar of bills in the House, you'll find that a large number of them, one year it was like 612 bills referred on the last day of session. Now, the bills have to go through a certain order. They have to be first read, second read, then they go to a committee, and they have to be voted out of the committee if the committee chooses to, and then they go back to the calendar. Actually, this goes to the Speaker, and he can choose to put it on the calendar if he wants to. And then if it's placed on the calendar, they can be debated, amended if necessary, and then they could be voted to pass and then sent over to the other chamber for everything to go back through the same process so that the bills are the best they can be. And I say that tongue-in-cheek because they're not always the best they can be. Mm-hmm. So the bills that aren't referred till the last day, there's no way in the world you can get that through the whole process.
Well, they're obviously running the clock out.
Yes, that's exactly
obviously.
Right. Yes, and that's funny you say that, Winetta, because the term "we ran out of time" is often used. Mm-hmm. It's like,
sure.
Mm-hmm. What did we do the first 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of session?
Right.
We said idly by and didn't do a whole lot. Yep. And so don't tell me we run out of time when we could have done things more expeditiously. Someone took last year's Senate proceedings and they put a clock on it. I didn't verify it, but I know there's probably some truth to it where we only spent like 30 minutes a day in session. Mm-hmm. Until the last couple of weeks, and then we got hours on the floor. Well, if we're only spending a half an hour in session during the first 2 or 3 months of session, don't come back and tell me that we ran out of time when we wasted all that time.
That's right.
We could have done a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So the people, how can the people be heard if things get... it sounds like it goes to committee. You know, just from a lay person looking at it, there's a lot of process there.
Yes.
Well, and they're not being heard if it's all ending up on the floor and not brought.
The people are being filtered.
On the cutting room floor,
down,
so to speak, and not being brought up. Mm-hmm. They're not being.
Today we have a greater opportunity to be involved and aware of what's happening because of the media.
Yes.
And you can pull up the recordings of the sessions. You can get sometimes the printed view. In the Senate, we don't have the recordings of the Senate yet. On the House side, they have their committees all recorded. We're way behind the times in the Senate, and I proposed a rule this year and last to get our proceedings live streamed. I got the estimated cost just a couple of days ago, and they said to start it's going to cost over $180,000 the first year, and then $130,000 every year thereafter. So I'm hoping this week in my capital report to put those figures out there and just get a sense from the people. Is that worth it to you? $180,000 is less than 1/1000% of the budget of $50-something million or $1 billion. So it's not a lot of money, though it is a lot of money.
Well, it's a lot of money, but when we look at the amount of money we're trusting our representatives with to spend and the decisions they're made and the dollar amount there, that's well within the budget of
and since you're a resident of my district, Kevin, I'm going to say that's a yes from you.
Absolutely.
So I've got one yes.
Yes.
So yes for me too.
Yes.
Good. Well, I have 2 yeses.
Yes.
There you go.
Good. And so
we want to know
if that happens, it'll give you a better opportunity to, at your leisure, to listen to some of the debate, and hopefully, if that piques an interest, you can become more involved. And the bad thing I was going to talk about is that oftentimes we get so busy in our daily lives that we just either don't think about what's going through the legislature or we're distracted with other things. And I understand that part. But I'm telling you, and I think you guys understand it because you're involved in it, we have to get more people involved.
Yes.
at the basic level,
Yes.
if you know what's happening, you can contact your senator, your representative, and ask them, hey, explain this to me if you're interested to know. And if we don't do what you think we should be doing, that's where you need to ramp it up a little bit and do what you can either to hold us accountable and make sure that we do what you want, or you work like the Dickens to get us unelected. That's not easy to do, but it's necessary.
So it's time for the people to get engaged, some disruptors.
You betcha. Yeah.
The citizens, this is our responsibility. And you know what? We've got to get back in there. We've got to start voicing what we expect. And we've got to start holding people to a standard. And we can't have representatives go to have to be indoctrinated into a system that eliminates us from it.
Yeah.
It's a firewall. It's
Yes.
a roadblock.
Right.
Well, and that brings me to the next question.
Okay.
There was a very contentious House vote for the Speaker of the House, and I don't know the gentleman personally. I know that he was next in line, apparently, which I don't understand that. I know that there was an early vote before the new members ever came in. I know that this gentleman doesn't always vote conservatively. I know that I think it's like 38% of the time. I need to recheck, but I think about 38% of the time he votes with the Democrats.
On a grade scale, that would be a D.
Well, and he was one of 3 Republicans in the House who voted against the transgender. They were trying
The
to
SAFE Act, Senate Bill
the
49.
SAFE Act.
Yes,
That's right.
protecting
I'm familiar with that bill.
Protecting children against the chemical
Yeah.
castration, the surgery, the hormones. It's troubling whenever you hear that this gentleman was next in line and earns a lot of money, and he has now been elected Speaker of the House. And and we went to see Justin, like you did, Justin Sparks, and he seems like a wonderful fellow. I'd love to visit with him. Love to have him on the podcast. What's your take on all that? Because, again, I'm not trying to judge anybody involved. I'm not trying to name call or throw anybody under the bus, but that was all very peculiar and sounded very fishy. What was your take on all that?
I don't remember the exact year that I learned that there is an heir apparent. Before John Patterson came in, there was another member who actually we shared a triplex office with. I learned that he was the heir apparent. And I thought, now that's kind of weird. Why would we have someone who's a freshman thinking 3 terms will go by and then the 4th term he's going to be the Speaker of the House? So we didn't do it overtly, but behind the scenes, we knew what was going to happen. And so the stepping stone is typically someone goes in and they win the race for the majority floor leader. And then after that, they'll be the Speaker in the next term or 2 years after. And so there was a member found who was interested in trying to upset the apple cart in a good way. And that happened. When the heir apparent lost the race for majority floor leader, they didn't run again. And the next year, after all that had happened, John Patterson comes in. They bring him to my office and they say, "This is John Patterson. He's going to be Speaker in such and such years." And I thought, here we go again. And doggone if they didn't do it. And you mentioned a vote before. What happens is the session, or just before the last session where they will actually nominate and elect a speaker, they'll have a caucus. And a caucus is just a meeting of the Republicans or the Democrats or whatever party or group you want. But they often meet down in Branson. And so they have a vote of the caucus chair, caucus secretary, the floor leader, the whip, and then they nominate someone to be a speaker. and John Patterson was nominated, and there was no opposition at that point. So he gets the perfunctory nod to do that. Well, sometime between that event and what happened in January, Justin felt impressed to oppose him, and I'm so grateful for Justin. I think he did the right thing. Some people said, "Well, wait a minute, why didn't he should have been out there a year before? Why?" It would have been maybe better. He might have generated a little bit more support. But the comments I've gotten from some is John Patterson isn't going to be beat. He's the one that we elected or nominated, and they won't tell you this, but here's the besides. I've got a committee I want, and if I oppose John Patterson, I'm not getting that committee. Or I have a good opportunity to pass a bill this year. If I oppose John Patterson, guess what? I'm not going to get a bill. Well, the majority of the House, unless they've gone to these Brave 10, as I call them, offices, they don't know what I did for them. And I'm just going to tell you, I support the Brave 10.
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Bryant, and let me see if I can name them all, Deanna, and Kevin, and Bert, and Bob, and Dale, and I think there's a Linda in there. Linda is one, I think. But anyway, and Maisie. Anyway, I had a special breakfast for them a couple of weeks ago, and I just told them how proud I was because
Yes.
they're bucking the system, not in a bad way.
No.
Our system is broken, and we have people who are being promised the moon, and there's no pun intended there. They're being promised that you're going to get your committees, special parking, you'll get whatever you want here, your committees and all that. And unless and until we have enough brave souls like these Brave 10 did, it's going to continue. And I'm just going to point it out here. We have some folks in our area who have been duped. Now, I know when they hear this podcast, they're probably going to come and say, "Mike, you don't understand." Yes, I do understand because I've lived through it in the House.
Yes.
I'm living through it in the
12
Senate.
years.
And I'm telling you what, until we get a backbone and in a Christ-like way, oppose the system, there's nothing's going to change. And so for Justin and all those who stood up against the tyrannical despots, I'm proud of you.
Yes.
Now, what has happened since then? I know for a fact that some have not gotten committees, not just the ones who voted for, voted for Justin, but some of those who, in some way, let it be known that they supported Justin, have not got committee chairmanships.
They're being punished.
And they're seniors. Yeah, they're being punished.
Yes.
No, their people are being punished.
Well,
the
they're
people
being
that they are
punished.
representing
Okay, you said that exactly right.
are being punished.
Yes, that's exactly right. Because
That's detestable.
and their voices are being silenced, and that's not acceptable. It is detestable,
That's
as you
right.
said.
Do you know what it was called in 1884?
What's
This
that?
is what sparked the revolution of the Mugwumps.
Yes.
Led by Mark Twain. It's called patronage.
Yeah.
And basically, it's buying, selling, or giving away favors for votes or money.
That's going to make a good filibuster speech, I think.
Yes.
You
I'm
need to
gonna have
talk
get
about the
that information.
Mugwumps.
Yeah.
And folks, I didn't mention it. Go back to episode 1. What is being talked about here is exactly that's what sparked the revolution. And people who are doing this stuff don't know what brush fires of liberty they are planting. They don't even know this is the stuff that starts revolutions in state governments and in national governments. This is what happened with the election we just went through.
Yes.
Because people started watching and they got sick of this stuff.
Nationally, we're looking at a golden age now, and look what it took to get us to that point. On the positive side, I love to see what you've been sharing with us is you've been one. And through all these years, you've been one and you've been alone. But this time, there's not one. One has turned into 10.
I wish I could take credit for that, but really I shouldn't. It is sad to me that we didn't have enough standing up back in 2019. And if it is because of me, great. I hope it doesn't die here. There's a spark. Well, Justin Spark.
There you go.
Bert said the same thing.
Yeah, Justin Sparks has sparked revival or some type of movement. And I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon.
No.
But it's just going to take folks who are not dead set on getting a bill passed or being looked at in a favorable manner all the time. I tell you what, I've taken some hits occasionally, but this isn't about me.
No.
It's about doing what's right.
Yes.
And I tell you what, if I didn't stand for the things that I'm standing for, how can I expect my children to say, Dad,
Yes.
I appreciate you being solid on that? Because what reason would they have to do the same thing if I'm just kind of wimpish, going tossed to and fro by the winds? Now, I need to say this too. Those who I'm talking about that are looking for a bill to be passed or a special assignment here or there, I don't dislike them.
No.
I think they're fine people.
Absolutely.
But I tell you what, I think you need to ask yourself some questions, do some introspection. And are you doing something because it's right, or are you doing something because you want something out of it?
Yes.
And if that's the reason, stay home. Don't run for office if that's what it is. Now, I'm digging a hole here for myself, but you know what? Someone needs to say it, and and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to put my name on the line. I'm not planning for running for anything, and unless the Lord wills it. But I'm tired of I'm not playing a game. I'm tired of people playing a game that they say one thing out of one side of the mouth and something else out of the other side of the mouth.
Yes.
They're just trying to fool themselves, and that's not working. So folks who are listening to this podcast, find out who your representative and your senator is.
Yes.
Get to know them.
Yes.
And ask them some hard questions. If they supported John Patterson, ask them why.
Yes.
Yeah.
And hopefully you know the answer before they do. If they supported Justin, ask them why.
Yes.
Ask them what their purpose is of being in the legislature. And if it's for getting a retirement or passing a bill or being in the limelight, they need to be brought back down to earth and bring them back home. So maybe I should stop there. But
what you just said, one of the things that we agreed to early on, I've got a couple of people that I think so much of that are involved in politics right now, and they don't understand what you're saying. And I think that sometimes, we talked about this with Bert, I think sometimes you get in there, you get involved. That was the first question we asked you. You've been here all those years, and the thing that we love about you, you're still Mike, and you are still focused on the people. You're focused on liberty. You're focused on saving lives. You don't want children being murdered in abortion. You're focused on the right things. I think sometimes people get up there and they just get what you said, the brainwashing. Sometimes they get so confused by the procedures. Well, we got to follow the procedures in order to get these things done. And I think that there are people that twist those procedures and just keep leading them on. I mean, how many times? It's Groundhog Day. How many times do you listen to somebody and say, well, okay, yeah, I don't really agree with this. I know this is right, but, we got to do this in order to get to the next step. And it just never happens.
Yeah.
And I love what you just said. You said bring them home, because we need to all be allies.
Yes.
Those people that don't agree with me necessarily, I care for them, and I want to be allies, and I think we could be.
Yeah.
But we've got to get past this. Like I said, this is what sparked the Mugwumps in 1884.
I was smiling. For those who are listening, couldn't see the smile, but something came to mind that happened my first session in the Senate. And first I'll say, learn the rules. So if you know the rules, you can get a lot of things done. And in the Senate, as well as the House, if there is a point of order raised where you don't agree with something that was done, and you raise a point of order so that they can hash out the differences there, the President Pro Tem is responsible for giving a decision on how he's going to come down on that. And so my first year, I didn't know any better, I guess, and I can't remember what the issue was, but I raised a point of order, and two senators immediately came to my desk and said, "Mike, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I raised a point of order." He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I need to add one more thing. I raised a point of order. They came back and they decided against my point of order." So I was like, well, I didn't agree with that because I don't think the guy had a rationale for it. So I appealed the ruling of the chair. That's what I meant to say. They surrounded me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, I appealed the ruling of the chair. And he said, "Well, we don't do that here." And I said, "Well, I just did." And they said, "Well, maybe there's a better way." And I said, "Well, what is that way?" So
Yes.
over the next few minutes, they convinced me to withdraw my point. So I did. And guess what happened?
You got railroaded.
Not a thing. It was like what I opposed, nobody cared about, and there was no more discussion about it. And so that same year, another point of order was raised by me. The decision came again against me, so I appealed the ruling of the chair, and guess what? They weren't going to change my mind this time. And so we stood for quite a while, and it's like we have people who are tyrants. They're the kings, and whatever they say is going to go. And so for those of you who are listening, just keep that in mind, that you send someone out there to represent you, and these kings and or queens can snuff out their voices, and that affects you because they're your voice.
Yes.
And so either support them in what they're doing, get to know what they're doing, and if you don't agree, then oppose and hope they'll see the light. And that includes me too.
Yes.
I appreciate the praise that you've given me, but I'm not perfect. And I know I've made lots of mistakes. I'll likely make a lot more. So I hope you'll keep me accountable and hold me accountable too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, and part of keeping someone accountable is they've got to be willing to have a conversation, civil discourse.
Yeah.
We don't have to agree on everything.
Right.
But those standards, you mentioned our founding fathers and our documents, we've strayed so far away from that. The civil discourse has absolutely abandoned us in so many circles.
Yeah.
Do you see hope for starting to have conversations again, rather than having all this manipulation and this sterile bill that goes and goes through the procedures rather than going from the people to the floor?
Yeah.
How can we get the people back in the middle of that to bring that conversation back?
Well, there is hope, and what you just said on the latter end there is, I think, the key, because we can do what we're doing up at the Capitol, and unless those back in our districts understand and know what we're doing and why we're doing it, they're the ones, their voices need to be heard. And if they will call and email and actually come up to the Capitol on occasion and hold us accountable, one of the things I think is going to happen is that those of us who are not doing what our voters want, there has to be a harsh lesson given.
Yes.
And that is that, you know what, we've given you an opportunity and you're not doing what we want. And so we're not going to vote for you again.
Yes.
And that takes a lot of work.
Yes.
It may only be a 2-year stint, but if we do that often enough, and even a senator 4-year stint, it's hard to unelect a senator too, but it can be done. And until we have that movement take place, it's going to continue. The bad stuff will continue.
So
The reason that we're wanting to bring others on too, to get perspective.
Yeah.
This is good, and it's hard. It's hard because people are not going to like hearing it,
Right.
people up at Jefferson City. But the reason that we're bringing you on, that we brought Bert on, we're going to bring Bob on, we're going to, talk to some other people from Jefferson City. We wanted them, our listeners, and they're growing. We want them to hear you. We want them to hear your heart more than anything. And one thing that I want to do, we'll try to keep updated on everything that's going on, but I might harass you every now and then. I promise I won't harass too much. But if something's going on, we'll put it on the air, and we will give people phone numbers to call.
Yes.
We will give people names to call. This is something that God has inspired us to do.
And that's important, and that help will be greatly appreciated.
yes.
Yeah.
We want to tell people, you remember Mike, the interview with Mike? Mike needs help.
Yes.
This is going on. Mike says, this is what you can do today to help him. And I'll just bet you we'll get some folks, because people all the time, one of the things that got us involved in politics over the last couple of years is people saying, man, things are going down the tubes. I don't even know what to do. I don't know. I wish I could do something, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
That's one thing that they can do is either a phone call or an email or
bet.
both.
Yeah. And the technology today has allowed us to be more attached and involved in those things. And hopefully the Senate will get on board on that too, so that we can let people see and hear. But there really isn't a lot of excuses these days.
No.
I remember working at a hospital, again, locally, and there would be problems that were, I thought, relevant to each of us. And the conversation would be, are you going to watch Dancing with the Stars tonight? Or are you going to watch Survivor or whatever? And then a relevant topic would come up, and we'd look at our watches and say, well, it's time to go back to work. We don't care, at least back then.
Yep.
But we've got to care.
Yes.
We've got to be involved enough so that we can hold our elected representatives accountable.
It's time.
We do.
Yes, it is time. That's exactly right.
We do.
We came so close to losing everything. Over this last 4 years, it's been overwhelming.
Yeah.
How close we came to losing our country.
Yep.
And now our state, we're on the other side. We're entering a golden age on the federal level, and there's hope, and there's things are starting to look right. We're starting to get some people in that care. Some disruptors are showing up, and in our state now, I think there's a golden age ahead of us too. How do we get there? What's our first step?
Well, take a look if you're daring. Take a look at the websites for the mo.house.gov, house.mo.gov and senate.mo.gov, and you can go to a legislation tab, and you can look by topic if you want to. It'll sort them that way, and just take a look at some of the bills that have been filed. And if something grabs your attention, contact your legislator and ask them either to support it or oppose it. We've probably got more that we need to oppose. But to answer your question bluntly, is that we've got to stop just passing bills for the sake of passing bills. And we need to do what we can to preserve and protect the God-given liberties. The state didn't give us any rights. God gave us those rights.
Yes.
And the state does more to mess them up than anything else. I'll tell you, the government is not the answer.
No.
The answer is a trust in the Lord.
Yes.
And if you don't have a personal relationship with the Lord, that's what you need to start with.
That's right.
And because the government's not the answer, God is.
That's right.
So agreed. So agreed.
Do the people have the ability to have an executive order?
The people can actually write an executive order, at least at the state level, and I don't think they can at the federal level either. They can have influence, but that would be a direct tie to either the president or the governor. Okay.
There's options. You know what? There's a lot to think about. But we've been here before as a country.
Well,
this is not hopeless by any means.
Right.
And the splash of cold water that we all got in 2020, I mean, that was when we really woke up. Some of that same stuff is hitting us now in Missouri. There are more people that are becoming, especially after Amendment 3 passed.
Yeah.
We've got this minimum wage that who knows what it may be $25 an hour next year, or maybe $45. Who knows? And then we'll all go out of business.
It'll continue to rise with inflation too.
Yes.
And something that surprised me with the minimum wage effort is that the Missouri Chamber, as liberal as they are, they're in opposition to it. I thought, well, great, but that needs to be repealed.
Yes.
And so does Amendment 3.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because of we could spend another half an hour just talking about that. It was basically, it's outside money. You know this. Whenever Biden said 2 years ago, whenever Roe versus Wade was done away with, he said, well, it's going to go to the states now. And that's when they started pumping money into the states with these initiative petitions. Yeah. So he did good on his word, didn't he? And we all got fooled, unfortunately.
And we need to wake up. Followers of the Lord need to wake up.
Yes.
Boy, don't we?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, Mike, I bet you've got some stuff you've got to go do. This has been wonderful.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
It has been wonderful, and we would love anytime I know you're busy. I know you got lots of stuff going on. Anytime you're around and you got something you're chewing on that you would like to talk about that our folks need to hear.
Thank you.
Yes.
We would love to have you come and tell us.
I'd like
tell
that.
people.
Yes.
We want to know what we can do.
Good. Thank you.
Our folks want to know that. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to be back again, of course, soon with more information, more news. We hope that you'll join us then. And wherever you're at, enjoy the rest of your day. And remember, stay in that mugwump state of mind. Always stay informed, inspired, and definitely always stay independent. God bless.